this is Grant with Grant's Heating and Air. Today I want to talk about our all-electric Daikin system that we installed. And so let's get right to it. So what we did is we took out the LP gas furnace, our propane furnace that was in here, and we went to something that costs a lot less to operate. And this is an all-electric Daikin system. So we have two sources of heat with this. We have a resistive heat coil that is located in the upper part of the cabinet here. That is the secondary source of heat. And so if we put the system under high demand, this heat kit will kick in to be an auxiliary source of heat. And then of course we have our outdoor heat pump. And our heat pumps can operate down to -10 degrees before shutting down, and we would rely solely on the heat kit in the air handler. What we did is we installed a high efficiency filter down here. Very easy for the customer to replace. They can just pull that guy out, slide out that nice big filter, and this lowers the resistance in the system and allows the customer to have longer filter intervals so they don't have to change it as often. So what else we got here? We got a little safety switch we located on here in case there's any problems with the cooling portion of this system. So all of our heat pumps do cool as well, which is a nice benefit. So we went ahead and added the bypass humidifier from Honeywell. This is the advanced model that does give the customer some information, whether they need to service the humidifier, change the pad, and it also indicates, of course, that it is humidifying. It does have a powered damper. It's kind of hard to see, but this is a little indicator of the damper. This will open and close based on the demand of the humidifier. Really easy for the customer to change. You just lift up this top door and you can physically just grab the pad, pull it out, and the whole thing comes out as an assembly. It also allows for side pull out on either side, so it has a good application for that. But what's really a benefit to humidifiers with an all-electric system is that all-electric systems aren't as hot as a gas-fired furnace. So we can utilize the humidifier less actually than when you are with a gas-fired furnace. A gas-fired furnace is so much hotter that this humidifier will run a lot more with that system. So you get a really comfortable, even heat, and the system will run a lot longer. And that's one thing that customers that have never had a heat pump, they're kind of their one major concern right away is, wow, this system's running like 2-3 times longer than their gas furnace did. And that's totally normal. And even though this system might run 3 times as long, it's still going to cost less to operate, especially on propane, where we're seeing $2 a gallon or more, and even $1.50 a gallon. This system will still cost less to operate. And we're lucky to have only 9 cents a kilowatt in our location in Colorado, so we can really utilize the electricity, and it's not expensive at all. Here we can hear it actually slowing down right now. So that brings me to a point that these systems have many stages of heating and cooling. So we're not just 100% or 2-stage. This system's actually going to ramp up and ramp down with many stages as it goes through its heating demand and even cooling demand. So both of that as well. So you see it even reached humidity here. The damper is just closed. And this actually system we set up with the included digital humidistat. And what we like about doing it this way is we can actually control the humidity set point automatically based on outdoor temperature. So when we get really cold outside, we need that humidity target to come down. And that's because we can get moisture on the windows. It's too much humidity. It looks like kind of everything is shutting off at once here, which is nice. So that's all automatic here, and you can see there's a setting, and you can actually go 1 through 10 on this just by going up and down. And this, if you look in the manual, it kind of tells you what that actually correlates to on a target, but usually we're targeting about 35%. But you can see here we have very cold temperatures today as we're going to go outside and experience that. But this has modulated itself down to about a 31% target. Let's see what else is happening here. So on this display inside here, which we can show you here in a minute, it's giving me some information, and it's basically just saying that it's running the fan at 300 CFM, and it'll say F, and then it'll say F just means fan, and then it'll say A, which is the airspeed, and then it's going to give us some numbers. We'll see if we can get in there and kind of show you that control board. Might be kind of hard to see. But anyway, it's kind of neat. You can walk up and see what operation the system is in. Okay, so what else I want to talk about here is the difference between a heat pump and a gas-fired furnace. So one thing right away a customer is going to notice is that the temperature out of the register is not going to be near as hot as a gas-fired furnace. And that's totally normal, because what we're doing with a heat pump is we're not creating the heat, we're actually transferring the heat energy. It's a neat technology. So we have heat energy outside, even though it feels very cold to us, there's actually still heat energy out there that can transfer through the outdoor heat pump and come through the refrigeration process through the line sets, and then we can actually have that heat from outside come back into the home through the refrigeration process. That's a lot like an air conditioner, only in reverse. So instead of taking the heat out of the home in the summertime, we're now adding the heat in the wintertime. And so these coils in and out are just changing roles, and that's what's really neat about a heat pump, is it can change and reverse its refrigeration flow. What we want to talk about is the difference in the heat that you're going to feel at the register. So one of the important things to know and explain to a customer about a heat pump is that when they go up and feel that heat, it's going to feel almost cold or cool, because you've got moisture on your hand, there's air velocity going by, of course evaporating, which is going to make it feel even cooler. But typically you'll see 21 to a 28 degree difference between the actual room temperature and what's coming out of the register, where a gas-fired furnace could be 120, 130 degrees, and then you might see 90 to 95, 100 degrees like that when it's a heat pump. One of the advantages to an all-electric system is that the auxiliary heat, which is a heat coil inside the air handler, and it's nothing different than like a hair dryer, just a coiled up wire with resistive heat. And what that will do is allow the system to operate both the heat pump and, we gotta let the kitty in. Okay, there we go. Okay. So we have three different types of systems when it comes to this forced air setup. We have the standard traditional gas furnace, whether it's natural gas or LP, and we have a dual fuel system. And this is not a dual fuel, but what you would see in a dual fuel system is a standard gas furnace sitting here with the coil for the air conditioning unit sitting on top. And how those work is we cannot operate both the gas furnace and the outdoor heat pump at the same time, and it really has to do with the location of the evaporator coil. And that's because in a dual fuel system, this coil would be on top of the furnace. So if the furnace is heating, pushing heat into the coil, it's going to be so hot that the coil from the heat pump, it can't reject the heat into the airflow, so they cannot operate at the same time. So that's going to be one of the disadvantages if you're really all about a heat pump system, is that a dual fuel system cannot operate both at the same time. We usually set that balance point around 20 to 25 degrees, and there is a calculator that we do online for that, and the system will automatically just switch from the gas-fired furnace to the heat pump and back and forth. In this application though, this is what's really neat, is since the coil is on the bottom and the heat pump is producing this heat and rejecting it into the air, and then our auxiliary heat is above. So now we can actually energize this heat kit, if you will, when anytime you need more heat than what the heat pump can provide. So as we get colder and colder outside, the outdoor heat pump can produce less and less heat. It will produce less and less heat. So sometimes, let's say the customer bumps the thermostat up a few extra degrees, the system and the thermostat, everything's communicating and talking to each other. The outdoor, the indoor, the thermostat, all communicating. And the thermostat will say, hey, I'm under kind of a larger load that we know the heat pump itself would take quite some time to do. So it'll energize the auxiliary heat at the same time, still utilizing the very efficient heat pump, adding more heat and making the temperature rise quickly. And that brings in more comfort when needed. So it's really neat on the all-electric systems that we have two sources of heat that can operate together, where a dual fuel system cannot operate together. And let's say, heat pump outside has an issue or failure, or let's say we get below -10, which does happen here in Colorado. We size the heat kit to handle the home. So the heat kit on its own will handle the load of the home just in case we get down to those really, really cold temperatures. So that's what's really neat about an all-electric system And also, the simplicity of an all-electric system is very important, because in a gas-fired furnaces, you have gas, of course, going to it. You've got PVC venting. You've got, pressure switches and inducer motors and igniters and flame sensors and all kinds of things that can go on inside a gas-fired furnace that, even just a little backup in the drain in the P-trap can cause the whole gas furnace to shut down. In this particular system, we don't have all that complexity. We don't have carbon monoxide. We don't have gas. We don't have venting. None of that. And so now we're just down to a simple control board that all furnaces and air handlers have, the heat kit, a couple relays, and then your traditional evaporator coil that would have been on top of a gas furnace anyway. So we've really simplified this system by going all electric as well. Some furnaces have issues with high winds and where the vent locations are. Sometimes the vents aren't pitched properly. We can get water inside the vent, which will shut down the furnace. So there's a lot more that can shut down a gas furnace than an all-electric system. So I think that's a really good benefit to people as well. And it's not producing very acidic condensate. Okay, so that's what happens with a gas-fired furnace. It is utilizing so much of that heat that it actually condenses the flue gases in the PVC pipe, so that actually starts to drain back, and it's a very acidic water that now has to go down to the floor. And actually that will eat the concrete. If you guys look down here on the old system, you can see that the concrete was actually eaten by the acidic condensate of the gas furnace. So we've eliminated all that. The only water that's coming out of this system during heat mode is actually here because of the humidification. That's not really part of the heating process. But outside now is where we're going to have water, and I can talk a little bit about that outside. Our heat pumps are automatically going to go into a defrost mode as that coil starts to ice up, and we can talk more about that outside. But really all the water is outside, and so that is another benefit to an all-electric system. Okay, I want to talk about one last thing that I think is a real benefit for our area is we have some really large rebates that come back for the high efficiency and what we call a cold climate heat pump. And so we're able to get the customer thousands of dollars in rebates, and even the tax credits, 25C tax credit, and those kinds of things can qualify for this system. So it's very nice to be able to give the customer back money and really see the savings in operations. So we see customers saving hundreds of dollars a month in operations on a system like this just because of the cost of propane versus 9 cents a kilowatt on a system like this. And just to kind of get a little geeky in here, we got a 10 kW heat kit in here, which is going to pull about 42 amps of power rated on a 60 amp breaker, and that'll be its maximum amperage in here, be about 42 amps when running the auxiliary heat kit. Our outdoor unit is rated up to 35 amps on the breaker, but when you go into the tech specs, it's really only pulling 17 to 20 amps. So it's very incredible how low of power these heat pumps are using these days with inverter technology, and you'll get to see the outdoor heat pump here soon. It's actually Daikin FIT system, FIT, and what's really neat about that is it really does fit all kinds of different systems where we can use them in dual fuel, we can use them in all electric systems. And it is an inverter type of technology. It has that many stages of heating and cooling I talked about earlier. This has a touch screen here where we can touch it, get into this main screen. You can see here simply showing what the temperature is in the room at 67 degrees. Gives you a little information that there's a schedule running and someone has adjusted the temperature, so it's telling you that it's going to go back to that schedule at a certain time. But over here on the left, the little flame here, we can click that and we can get into our modes. So we have auto, cool, heat. Auto just does cool and heating together. And this is our emergency heat setting. So if there was ever a problem with the outdoor unit, we can initiate that and it'll just run the indoor heat kit for us. By pressing on the dial anytime, it'll take you back to the home screen. And we have our 4 main buttons down here. They're kind of small and hard to see here. We got our schedule here where we can go in and do all kinds of things. We can edit it, we can program the fan, we can put as many schedules in per day that you want. We also have our away mode. So this is nice when you're on vacation or maybe you're just not spending a lot of time at your home. And so you can just initiate this and have a max up and down heating and cooling. On this side here, we got our air quality. It's kind of telling us how our filter is doing, what the current humidity level is, what the current temperature is, and gives you some outdoor data based on the internet. And this actually, and I don't know, it may be reading the temperature from the outdoor unit as well. It also gave you some ability to control the fan. And this one clean's pretty cool. Like, let's say you're cooking some food and you burn something, and you can go ahead and turn that on and it will run the fan for 3 hours. Okay, here we are in the settings. Oops, I'll show you a little bit about the settings here. So on the top little, it's really hard to see, there's these little lines up here by the main menu. You click this and this gets you into the settings here. And this allows us to, once again, change our system modes. If we didn't want to hit that button I showed you in the first part, here's our schedule away display. So some of these were the quick buttons at the bottom. The display's neat because you can come in here and maybe change the brightness, or maybe this thing's just too bright at night and you really want it to be dark at night. You can turn that on. Large font for guys like me that can't see those little tiny prints. It's got some screensaver and some other options there in the display. You can change it so there's no sounds, reminders for changing your filters and doing different things like that. And you can get into your Wi-Fi and hook this up to the Wi-Fi so you can control this from your app on your phone. So that's really slick. So pull out your smartphone and you can go in. And one of the really neat things about the Daikin 1 is that the app on the phone is exactly the same as the interface here. So if you're familiar here or familiar on the app, it's the same experience, both sides. So, and there's some more information here. You can actually hook this up to an energy provider and they can actually give you some credits and control the thermostat a little bit. And then just some extra stuff in here. You can actually even get some support with cloud services. So you can see our information in here, but the cloud services allows us to actually see what's going on with the system remotely, and we can call the customer and say, hey, you know, we see there's a problem with your thermostat and we need to provide you service. So anytime you just hit the home button, very easy to use. If you want to raise the temperature, you just turn it clockwise. You can see it lower the temperature, turn it counterclockwise, or you can physically grab it and change it. So that's a neat way. Or you see these little up and down arrows, boom, boom, there you go, do that too. So pretty easy to operate, very user friendly. So any customers who really are like, is that an easy thermostat to use? I get that comment a lot. I'm like, yes, it's very easy to use. So you really can just set it and forget it. And that's the best way to operate a heat pump, is actually to set it and forget it and not jump that thermostat up and down. And we're not using that auxiliary heat, and we're running the system the most efficiently and cost-effective way. So we're out here standing by the heat pump I was talking about earlier. It's actually running now, as you can probably hear, but they're very quiet. We are underneath the deck here, so there'll be a little bit extra noise coming this direction. But if you were to stand in front of this right now, you'd be freezing cold, because it is extracting that heat energy I was talking about from the outdoor, and all the air coming through is minus that heat. So this is very cold. And you know, if you ever stand out in front of your air conditioner in summer, it's super hot. So that's the reverse of this. So this is the Daikin FIT that I spoke about, and it fits very nice and slim. Call that a side discharge for the fan. And all the coil, of course, is across the back here, and I'll get out of the way so you can see that. So we got a little bit of a fan guard here, and that protects the back if it were to be exposed to anything. But it's lifted on a mini split stand, and we do that because there's going to be water coming out of the bottom of this unit, and especially when it's very humid outside, maybe a storm's coming through, a lot of cloud vapor, this thing's just going to pour water off of it, because in very cold temperatures the coil will start to ice up. There'll be ice forming all along the back of this coil, and the system automatically detects that over a certain period of time, shuts down the indoor fan, goes back into cooling mode, but doesn't blow any cold air inside. But that gets this outdoor coil really nice and warm. It'll melt everything down, and then it'll be nice and ready to extract more heat energy when it turns back on to heating mode. We've also installed a pan heater in this. We do that on our all-electric systems because we're going to operate this system down to -10. It can actually go lower than that, but at a certain point, about a -10, it costs more than what it's worth with the heat energy it's producing. So we set that up in the thermostat, but the pan heater I was speaking about is located in the bottom of the unit, doesn't need any more power. It's actually rated with the system itself, and if any ice were to build down in the bottom where the water's draining out, it's going to melt it off, and that way we don't have any potential of ice building up and hitting that fan. So this is a really simple system, and the fact that customer really doesn't need to really do anything other than yearly maintenance with us. So we really like these. Let's see. Hopefully the microphone fuzzy thing is blocking the wind sounds. But even just around this corner, barely can hear it. Very, very quiet system, which we obviously prefer. So yeah, that's pretty exciting stuff. We're happy we could show you this and the all-electric system, and thanks to the customer for allowing us to share the system we installed, and stay tuned for another one from Grant Seating and Air. Thank you.